But to sum up with these two shoes, like the feedback of the ride, so I would explain the MagMax shoe comparison I've got for you guys today. We've got another battle of the Max stacks here. We've got the Puma MagMax Nitro up against the Brooks Glycerin Max. So we're going to go through their key features, their similarities and their differences, and hopefully from that, that's going to give you guys a great indication of choosing the right shoe for you. But before we get into it, and if you guys haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And with the specs, so both neutral road running shoes and both obviously in the Max stack category. Now, in the price, massive difference here in Australia. So $70 more you're going to pay for the Glycerin Max, only $20 more in the US. Now, as you can see there, in the weights there is not too much between it. Can you feel any difference on the foot? Well, I'm not sure if I can feel the weight, but I do know that the Puma does feel a little bit more nimble on the foot. And in the stack heights as well, not too much between them, but when you're wearing both these two shoes at the same time, the Puma does feel like it's got the taller stack, and I think that's just because the foam is a little bit firmer. And with our upper, so both using a version of engineered mesh, but the materials feel very different. So it's pretty traditional and standard looking in the MagMax in the upper, and it's a real premium plush type upper that you've got in the Glycerin Max. But with our MagMax, so yeah, this mesh is thinner and I think it is more breathable as well. Really solid heel counter at the back, a little bit of play at the top. We've got a little pull tab here at the rear, probably a medium amount of padding around the heel collar here. And the tongue, best feature I think on this upper, it's a stretch knit tongue. So similar to what you're going to find on the Glycerin, not the Glycerin, the Nimbus, if you're familiar with that. Gusseted tongue, really wraps around the foot nicely, does great to hold the foot in this shoe. Lockdown, absolutely excellent. The lacing system here, pretty standard, but they use these really thin and robust laces, but no issues with those coming undone. In the fit, true to size in the length, so I know Puma is historical for their toe shape being a little bit too long, but it's not the case in the MagMax, so the length for me is just right, and the width is just fine as well. So I do think this is the best Puma fitting shoe that I have owned and am currently testing as well. Yeah, and in the Glycerin Max, so yeah, as I said, material feels a lot thicker, so engineered air mesh. But breathability is still okay, but the overall shoe is really, it feels a lot thicker and a lot more built up than the MagMax. So I think in general, it's going to be a hotter shoe. We get more padding around the heel collar here, so definitely a plush amount of padding, and we've got a little Achilles flare that the MagMax doesn't have. Still got a really solid heel counter though. We've got a really padded and plush tongue here that is not gusseted. So again, that's adding just a little bit of heat into the shoe. Lacing system here, so it's slightly skew off, so it's sort of off center, but it sort of goes the other way that normal shoes go off if they're off center. It looks a bit weird, but it doesn't affect the performance or the lockdown of the shoe. Lockdown, excellent. In the fit, I'm going to say it's true to size, but it could be a little bit long, but volume in general, this has got lots of volume in the shoe, so it's certainly a bigger fit overall than in comparison to the MagMax. But I need to mention the stepping comfort of the Glycerin Max. I think it is out of this world. It is so comfortable when you put your foot in and just to walk around in. But build quality in both shoes, I'm going to say it's absolutely excellent. And with our outsoles here, so two pretty different concepts going on here. So what they've done in the Puma MagMax, as you can see there, so lots and lots of rubber coverage. So they pretty much lathered the entire shoe, except for this middle part here and a little bit of exposed foam through the center of the shoe. But everywhere else, is just slathered in the Puma grip. So Puma grip is a market leading grip. It's excellent in all conditions, and they've got a lot of Puma grip on this shoe, so it's quite thick. These lugs come out quite far as well, so it's pretty aggressive that you would normally see on a road shoe, and that's why you can see a fair bit of wear signs or like pretty much early on in the shoe, and that's those lugs just wearing down and just adjusting to your the way you strike the ground, but it doesn't affect performance at all. And as I said, durability is excellent and the grip is pretty much second to none here. Now, totally different and clever design here in the MagMax. So you can see they just haven't slathered shoe. They've got it in these little slithers and these segments, and that obviously helps to bring the weight down in this shoe. But it's still effective. So really thick rubber compound. So very grippy. I haven't really tried it out in some challenging conditions, so in that really wet, greasy road yet. I haven't got a chance yet, but so far so good in this shoe. Yeah, minimal signs of wear, but I just love the rubber coverage. As I said, just in slithers, they're letting this midsole breathe a little bit. They're going to let the midsole splay. They're not going to constrict the ride at all, but absolutely love what they've done here. They've got a bit of a decouple groove there, and they've got some aggressive grooves throughout the middle of the forefoot as well. But overall, both outsoles here absolutely perform very nicely. And with our midsole, so both shoes using a version of Nitro injected foam. So with the MagMax, they just call it Nitro foam. Very simple design, no plate in the shoe, just a huge slab of this Nitro foam. But in the rigidity, very, very stiff shoe, especially for a shoe that doesn't have a plate, but it sort of needs that rigidity because it's got a nice little forefoot rocker here in the geometry, and it's quite easy to get onto as well. So it's very accommodating at all paces. It's not too late. But it is, I won't say it's overly aggressive, but you can certainly feel it much more than other shoes. So yeah, just this stiffness or the rigidity of the shoe helps you feel this rocker a little bit more. But as again, it accommodates a wide variety of paces, so very nice there. And in the Glycerin Max, so they have got what's called DNA tuned Nitro foam. So a little bit more going on than what you've got in the MagMax. So with this DNA tuned, brand new concept, and it's great to see Brooks going out on a limb here trying something new. So they've tuned the foam differently. So they've got bigger bubbles in the rear of the foam, and that results in the shoe feeling a little bit soft, a bit more compliant through the rear of the shoe. And in the front, the bubbles are smaller. So the injector bubbles are nice and small, and that sort of firms the shoe up, makes the shoe a little bit more responsive. Now, it's got no plate in the shoe. However, rigidity-wise, again, it's still a pretty stiff shoe, but I'm going to say the MagMax is the stiffest shoe, just. Geometry-wise, we've got a forefoot rocker, just like we do in the MagMax. However, the rocker in this version is a little later than the MagMax. So what does that mean? That means that the tipping point is further towards the toes, more so than the MagMax. However, it's not too late, because some shoes out there that are a bit too late and you can only really feel them if you're going fast. I think Brooks have really dialed in here where to start the rocker, because you still can feel this at jogging pace. But I do think the MagMax rocker is a little bit easier to get onto than the Glycerin Max. Even though both these shoes use a Nitro foam, they both feel pretty different. So MagMax, so this is, first word that comes to mind, I'm going to say is a bounce. But it's not going to be like really squishy and an overly bouncy shoe. It's like a poppy shoe. So there is not too much sink in this shoe, so you don't push down the foam too much, because the foam is pretty resilient. So there's a little bit of sink, but the rebound is really fast, so really poppy. So it's an energetic little ride, but it's still soft. But it's not soft like squishy, sluggish soft. It's more like a responsive soft. So you're still very protected from the road, but it's just got this nice little feedback, so this nice little responsive pop as you roll down the road. You feel pretty safe in this shoe as well. It's got a really wide platform, and you've got these sidewalls on that really make you feel like that you are pretty safe and you're not going to tip over in the shoe. As I said before, the rocker is in a nice little spot, so no matter sort of how fast you're going, if you're just sort of ticking your legs over going, you're just jogging, you can still feel this rocker working. You can still just feel it making the legs tick over a little bit easier. And then if you are picking up just a little bit, again, this rocker accommodates that pace as well. Now, a big difference here in the Glycerin Max. So first word that comes to mind here is, I'm going to say shock absorption. So this shoe pretty much just takes all the shock or the impact out of the road, no matter what surface that you're running on. It's a really unique experience. I haven't felt a shoe that can really just take all the impact out of the road, but this one does. And obviously it's a soft ride. So especially through the heel with this DNA where the bigger bubbles are, yeah, you can definitely feel that it is softer through the rear, and it does firm up a little bit through the front of the shoe, and obviously, and that lets you get onto the rocker and feel the rocker and utilize it to get onto the next step. Now the shoe is not, it's not overly sluggish, but it certainly doesn't feel like a fast or a responsive shoe. But because I've never felt like feedback from this shoe, I've been struggling to explain what the actual shock absorption or what the ride actually feels like. And I've been thinking about it quite a bit, and what has come to mind now is I think it feels kind of like gelatine. So like imagine a really thick piece of gelatine in the middle of the shoe that would just, like if you threw anything at it, it would just catch it, it would absorb all the shock, and there's a little bit of wobble, but then there's nothing back. So it sort of feels like that's the amount of shock absorption that you get with your shoe, but you don't feel like that you're digging yourself out of gelatine. It just feels like, yeah, that's how much impact, and that's sort of the feedback I get from this shoe. But yeah, totally different to the MagMax, totally different. In the geometry department, I think I can feel the rocker a little bit more in the MagMax over the Glycerin Max. But to sum up with these two shoes, like the feedback of the ride, so I would explain the MagMax like a tennis ball. So it's soft, but it's still got a bit of pop to it. And the feedback of the Glycerin Max is sort of like a squash ball. So if you can compare a squash ball and a tennis ball and how they work, how they react to the ground, that's probably the feeling or the difference that I've got between these two shoes, if that makes it easier to understand. So I think both these two shoes are targeted at the same types of runs, and they're both excellent. So easy days, yes. Your daily miles, yes. So your daily trainer, yes. For those recovery days where your legs are really banged up, yeah, they're both great. And I'm going to tick them off for the long run as well. However, I'll probably lean towards one shoe over the other in those different runs. So when my legs are really banged up and I need to just tick the legs over for a recovery run, I'm going to opt for the MagMax, not the MagMax, the Glycerin Max. For daily miles, easy days, it's a toss-up. I can't really tell which one I'd pick. It'd just be depending on how I feel on the day. But for a long run, I'm certainly going to lean towards the MagMax, and that's just because it feels like the foam is a little bit firmer. You get a little bit more kick, a little bit more pop in this shoe, and it does feel more efficient. And just wrapping up the comparison review between these two shoes, so they are probably further apart than what I first would have thought. So both Max Stack Nitro foam shoes, so yeah, but they weren't actually that close in the ride. So for me, the Glycerin Max is more closely resembling the More V5, so the New Balance More V5, so that really comfy, slow, squishy, soft ride, where yeah, the MagMax I think for me is more closely aligned with the Super Blast 2, so a little bit more responsive, a little bit more pop, and a little bit more efficient. So yeah, that's probably where I categorize these two shoes. This is closer to a Super Blast, this one is closer to a More V5. But anyway guys, that is it. Have you guys got any questions for me regarding these two shoes? How do they compare with anything else? Anything that I've missed, just ask me in the comments below. But anyway guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.